today. We're obviously not as strong as Australia or the Asian show. We'll just quickly check the weather. Fine and mild today. It's going to be a beautiful day. In fact, it should remain quite nice up to around about 10, 11 o'clock tonight when a bit of bad weather will be heading in. But let's not worry about that too much. Heading for a top today of 21. Currently outside, it's on 15. Right now, it's time to go to the boys in the Port Augusta Football Show. It's over to David Kemp and good old Neville, what's his name? Willcocks.
Morning, Neville. Thanks, DJ.
Good.
Round 13 SGL football. Welcome, Nev.
Good morning, David. I've just got out of my wheelchair and put my crutches down. Thank you, CJ.
Okay, you got the voting there for the Railroad Team of the Year.
Yes, after round 12, West Augusta on 59 points, hold a 2-point lead over Solomon Town. And Port have 48, Risdon and South both 41, Centrals have 35, Wilston 10 and Proprietary 2. So it's getting close to a very good competition there, David.
Yes, it's also very tight in the Better Home Supplies Football of the Year for $300 worth of Makita Power Tools. Voting last week between Solomon Town and Risdon, 3 to Anderson, 2 to Hillmans and 1 to Davies. The game between South and Proprietary, 3 to Chris Pelly, 2 to Mafrisi and 1 to Dunkley. The game between Port and Risdon, 3 to Pole, 2 to Shoemaker and 1 to Arbon. And the game between Western Central, 3 to Dixon, 2 to McSpiron and 1 to Prentice. Cumulative voting to the end of round 12. 14 to Kevin McSpiron, 12 to Pat Hines, 11 to Shoemaker, 8 to Bowles and Gavin Lesky, and that might be some sort of indicator to the Madigan medal.
Well, generally it's the winners coming from up in the top 5, 6, 7 of the those local votes, David, and it is a good indication that one of those players is going to do well in the medal.
And talking to you, in fact, last Sunday night about a couple of things, particularly about the positioning of umpires. We were having an intense discussion about this.
Yeah, so I have watched the umpires, and they're seeming to run between the 50 or 45.65 metre square it is, and there's a line from the corners that runs off to the point post. It's not made there, but they seem to be running in there, and they seem to have to sprint far too often to get into a passage of play which has come to a halt out on the boundary line. I think they should be just a little bit closer, and it's something that they could look at to improve the game. The guys last week were far enough apart, but they were too far away from the game.
Is that partly to do with the fact that one's from Whyalla and one's from Port Augusta, or...?
No, I think that it's partly because they don't think about getting out into there. I mean, you can't see... well, if you can see from 40 metres, you're sure to be able to see a lot better from 20 metres away. And that's the theory that Mark Poser used to use when this two umpiring system came in, that the lead umpire should only be about 20 metres from the game.
What about the difference between the two umpire and one umpire system in terms of positioning?
Well, you still work on the basic triangle, David, where... with the one umpire, you would be between where the ball was coming from and where it was going to. Now you keep the triangle with the play in between the two umpires, so it still works out on a triangle situation.
Okay, so Neville Willcocks with some advice for the umpires, and have you a rule for us this week, Nev?
No, I don't, David. I found that even though you do read the rule book word for word over the radio waves, nobody listens. They just say, well, you wouldn't know. And yet it's there in black and white when I read it, so I've decided this week I won't do it. I'll let them have a rest. And
the other point of interest is that Mick Fuller back in the Woodville second side.
Yes, that's an interesting one. We did mention him playing last week. That looks like the trains are running on time this week.
Looks like they are. After the break, we'll look at the teams in round 13 SGL football.
Spruce up the appearance of your paths, driveways or any outdoor area with Burrell Patio Pavers. Inexpensive to buy, heaps of earthy colours and easy to lay in a wide variety of patterns. Just follow the 6 simple steps in the Burrell Handyman pamphlet or trust the Burrell experts to do a professional job. Once laid, Burrell Patio Pavers are made to give years of trouble-free service under feet or car tyres. Burrell Patio Pavers. For a free measure and quote, call into Burrell Hollerstone, the Old Whyalla Road, Port Augusta West, or Jessup Street, Whyalla.
It's 25 minutes to 9, checking the JEC Fruit Bowl specials for today. We have loose oranges, 49 cents a kilo, Johnny apples, 49 cents a kilo, Duchess pears, nothing like a nice pear, I always say, 49 cents a kilo, loose carrots, 49 cents a kilo, king-size American celery, 49 cents a stick, Brussels sprouts, 69 cents a kilo, cabbages, 69 cents each. That's Neville Willcocks should eat more of those and get some of his hair back. Bananas, 69 cents a kilo, tomatoes, 2 kilos for 99 cents. So why not pop in and say hi to Big Bruce and his friendly staff at the JEC Fruit Bowl, 21 Church Street, Port Augusta. Right now it's back to the terrible twosome.
South and Port, the game of the round, the game between 3rd and 4th on the SGL table. The Port side reads from the back line Raffinelli, Swears and Pillion. The half-back line A. Lawrenson, Abel and Clark. The centre line Hoyle, Emery and Turner. Half-forwards Cousins, Lem and Leal. Forwards Arbon, Pole and Manuel. First up, Keane, Bullock and Blesky. Interchange players Finlay and Martin Lawrenson. Into the side come Lem and Cousins, and out Bell and Fitzpatrick.
The south side from the forward line reads Maloney, Kernahan and Coulter. The half forwards Pele, Corey and Bowman. The centre line Fox, Hines and Maul. The half-backs D. Rosie, Dunkley and Shirley. The back line is Shillabeer, Trawatha and Dignan. The first ruckers Coolman, Rob Rosie and Mafrisi. The interchange players are Everett and Collins. Into the side come Hines and Corey. Out go Flanagan injured and David Allenson.
And with Flanagan out of the side, that'll make a big hole.
Well, it does make a big hole when you've got a mobile big fella, David. You take him out and believe you me, this Flanagan is a great asset to the south side. He's really set them alight when he's got going, and they're going to miss him, I think.
That hamstring injury, probably 2 or 3 weeks at this stage, but Corey at centre-half forward hasn't played much there this season, and the other guy that could play centre-half forward and played it very well last week was Kid Moore.
Yes, well, they have developed a little bit of flexibility, and but Corey's a hard man to stand. Anyway, I think Greg Abel's going to have his hands full in this case.
We saw Port here 2 or 3 weeks ago, and they just scraped in against Willesden, but they must have played some very good football since then, beating Solly's and Risdon. Well,
they beat Solomon Town the very next week after just scraping into Willesden and not looking impressive in that win. And apparently the weather was right. I heard a little bit of a story from down Perry Way. One of my spies tells me that the Solomon Town guys didn't have long-sleeve jumpers and were suffering from the cold, and they didn't want to get in for the ball. Whether that's true or not, I don't know, but it's something that probably shows that they really weren't expecting the weather to help them, and they didn't go in to help themselves, whereas Port did, and they bullocked their way to the win. Their win over Risdon last week was another good factor. But I think they may find themselves just a little bit of different kettle of fish up here on this oval against South Augusta.
They've still got just a rough chance of making the double chance. They're 2 games and percentage off.
Well, at this stage of the season, they're 4% off. That's trying to win every game by about 16 to 20 goals. And that's a big order and big task to move up there. I think they're going to be staying in the 4th position. South's 2 games clear and playing very well too. And I'm leaning towards South.
I'm also leaning towards South in this one, but the point to consider is that South play Port, and they also play Solly's later on. That they may lose to Solly's up here, and that may give Port just that chance. It's just a chance.
Well, it is just a chance. If South beat Port today, they have no chance of getting into it. South meet Solomon Town in a fortnight's time, which will be a very good clash because that'll be up here as well. But I think Souths are keen enough now. They realise that their task of getting in, they wanted that week's rest too. Like West, they were chasing Solomon Town, and Solomon Town pulled all stops out last week. And they're still chasing that chance to say that we've are good enough to beat Solomon Town. I think they'll be putting their game together this week and next week and looking at Solomon Town in a fortnight's time.
Apparently in that Solly's game, the Port players really, those defenders checked very, very well, and Swerves will have to do a particularly good job on Kernahan and Abel on Corey. Corey we've just mentioned. But some of those other South players have been playing particularly well in the wet conditions in recent weeks. I refer particularly to Coulter, Rob Rosie, Pelly and Mafrisi, all real mud runners last week.
Well, they have to be in those conditions. That's when those little fellas come into the game very strongly. To check the tall Solomon Town side, as they did against Solly's a week or so ago, they must have done very well indeed. Conditions helping them as well. In good conditions, the close checking is not going to be quite on as much because the players will run a little bit more, and the taller, skinnier players, they will be able to mark the ball a lot more cleanly.
Yes, conditions should be dry there this afternoon, though apparently the oval has been aerated during the week, which has put it in an interesting condition, to say the least.
Does that also mean they left the sprinklers off?
I hope so. Emery and Hines should be an interesting duel in the centre. Emery tending to play that game from the centre.
Yes, and Pat Hines tending to run all over the ground, as we know he does. The thing that may count against Pat at this stage is he's coming back from an injury. He may start off nursing it and until he gets into the game, but that's going to be a very good clash indeed.
Pelly, a very adequate replacement last week in the centre.
Yes, got a lot of kicks. Only one thing wrong with Chris, I think sometimes he tends to blast the ball instead of delivering it, and he's a beautiful kicker of the ball. He should be able to sort of turn and straighten up and deliver the ball a lot better than he does, but he's been put under a bit of pressure lately, and that's, I think, is why he's been kicking it rather high and wide.
Both defences are very sound. Doug Rosie, Dunkley, Shirley, Shillabeer, Trawatha and Dignan have all been in good touch and very, very solid in the recent wet conditions.
Well, just an interesting point. I just took a quick look at the table. Both defences have had 1,085 points kicked against them. So looking at that, you've got to say they're on a par.
They are, certainly are. You're tipping this one in the game between 3rd and 4th.
I'm very parochial, David. I'm going for South because I want to see a Port Augusta team win the finals, and I think South or West is the side to do it.
I'm also going for South. I think they have the home ground advantage. Port's record up here, not as good as it could be. Westies play props, and some interesting moves here for West Augusta. Game in Perry this afternoon. The Westie side reach from the back line Richard Bury, Wayne Davies and Paul Brock. The halfbacks Colin Brock, McConnell and Mark Dighton. The centre line Harrison, Wickstein and Dixon. The half forwards A. Bury, Willis and Prentice. The full forward line Gower, Chapman and Quigley. The first ruck Smith, McSporran and Foote. The second rover, by the way, is Matthew Gower. Interchange players Joseph Butler and Chris Trevangos. Into the side comes Butler and Trevangos, and out Robinson due to work and Milbank. The two debut players are Joseph Butler and Chris Trevangos. Unfortunately, Trevangos is a little bit easier to say than it is to write down.
Prop side from the forward line, Zubernick, P. Coombe and Smart. The half forwards Bell, Rontonay and Maritas. The centre line is Holmes, Kataris and Smith. The half-backs T. Coombe, Watt and George. The back line is Creek, Simpson and Coldwell. The first ruck is Jamar, Miles and Stevens. The interchange players are Lagudis and G. Hoskins. Into the side, come Hoskins, Simpson, Rontonay, T. Coombe. Out go Byer, O'Donoghue, Ficken and G. Coombe. And G. Hoskins is a debut player for them.
O'Donoghue also played last week in replacing Gary Steig, who was unavailable. That was a late change. Second playing bottom. Can you see props breaking through?
Unfortunately for Joe Clark and the work he puts in, I can't see props winning a game this season. I've looked at the program and I've looked at who's beaten them, and I honestly can't see them winning a game. If they do, good luck to them. They will have put everything together on the one day. But they've got some good players in there that should be able to fire, but they've just not done it togetger.
Barry Rontonay back in the side at centre half forward. Work commitments and injury have forced him out for most of the season, but he played well early in the year.
Yes, and he's a strong focal point for them up there. And when you lose a guy like that to injury and work on an irregular basis, your side is definitely going up and down, and it is unsettling. You can't really get a team play going because you don't know who to fire the ball at, and the numerous changes they've had to make down there must surely unsettle the regular players.
What do you know of Chris Trevangos?
Only that I can spell his name because I've dealt with some of his relatives earlier in my teaching career. Yeah. I've watched him play in the thirds. He's a very aggressive player. He makes a strong attack on the ball, and he's a fairly strong lad.
He was the winner of one of the under-16 awards last year, wasn't he?
That's a couple of years ago, I think, David, and that's when I sort of started looking at him then. And he's a playmaker in the under-18s, and he will fit into the West side very well.
So that's two of those Westies youngsters coming in the last couple of weeks, Gower and Trevangos. Gower getting a big chance at second rover.
Well, against props, it's probably a better proposition to put him in and give him a full game. Against Centrals, a lot of hard players there. Props not quite as hard, not quite as determined, I suppose, at this stage of the season. So they're going to give him a good chance to get in there. And for Matthew's sake, he's a talented player, as I said last week. I hope that he can pick up confidence amongst the big fellas, and it'll do him good for the seasons to come.
Certainly will. Peter Coombe in good touch, the top goal kicker in the SGL so far on the bottom side.
Well, it has happened before where the bottom side had a guy who kicked over 100 goals in the league in Adelaide. It can be done if you're prepared to deliver the ball. It shows that they've got a relatively good forward setup, but they've only got one forward.
Yeah.
They need to win games. You can't just kick goals from the goal square, the guy in there. You've got to be able to kick goals with your run-on players, your centre-line players, your half-forward players.
Joel Holmes, first-year player this year, impressed me on the wing last week, and Chris Kataris also picked up a number of touches around the ground, and also Les Miles, the evergreen for props, doing some good work also.
Yes, well, they're players that have got to keep going. I mean, if they drop down, props are going to get really walloped because Chris Kataris and Les Miles are big kick winners for props, and they're always looking to do something with the ball. But unfortunately, the experience is not there of the players ahead of them, and they're not reading those players. They've got to learn to read what they're going to do, which leg they're going to turn on, how they're going to deliver the ball, whether they're under pressure and things like that. So that comes with time, and they haven't got enough senior players in that side to get these younger players up in time to win a game this year, I don't think.
Greg Caldwell also impressed me last week in the back pocket, picked up a number of touches around the ground, and but overall I can't see props winning this one either.
I can't see props getting within QE of West at this stage. West are travelling very well and looking at their clash with Solomon Town next week, which is also up here.
Yeah.
So Solomon Town meet West next week and Souths the following week in Port Augusta, which is going to be very good for the football up here, and fans should get along to look at it. But West are looking at saying, putting the game together and completely annihilating the bottom side if they want to do anything for their own confidence.
Yes, the Solomon Town percentage 63.04 and the West percentage 61.28. So Westies need a big win to be up round the mark there.
Well, I'd venture to suggest that they'd be looking at 20-plus goal win here and keeping props from scoring or getting the goals into the double figures.
Okay, well, just a note that's been handed to me. 2 Port Augusta girls are in the final 8 out of 65 likely in the state squad to be chosen to be in the 6 to compete in the Sapsaza tennis squad. They are Lisa Paul and Dion McHatton. The best of luck to them.
You just said girls. Dion McHatton is the boy. And Father Graham won't be too happy about that. Congratulations to those 2 children. They've been working very hard. The tennis tournament was in April. And they've been travelling down on a regular basis on weekends. Their parents take them down and they compete against other people in the state. And well done to those 2 people.
Okay, thanks to that caller. That means that we've got 3 or 4 listeners this morning. After the break, the other 2 games in round 13, SGL football.
A farmer like yourself who's invested a lot of money into machinery and equipment needs a decent shed to put it all in. You need the Protector from Boral Hollerstone. Few farm buildings can claim the sheer strength of Protector, while the wide bays and high roof will house even the biggest farm equipment. But most importantly, despite its superior design, Protector is competitively priced. The Protector Farm Building, available at Boral Hollerstone, the Old Whyalla Road, Port Augusta West, or Jessup Street, Whyalla.
Attention! Attention! Gene Generation announced their clearance of winter lines. Bargains throughout the store. Hoppers, cord basics only $12. Fashion $15. Other brands are crazy $6 and $10. Boys Levi cords $20. Men's $25. Teen girls cords $15. And ladies $25 including stretch. Hundreds of ladies canvas and cord dress baggies only $29 in beige, tan, khaki, black and grey. Shirts, wind cheaters, jumpers and tracksuits slash. Be early while stocks last with lay-by or credit cards at Gene Generation, Commercial Road, Port Augusta.
Here they come, Better Home Supplies Super Saturday Specials. And remember, they're open today till 3 o'clock.
And here they are, Super Saturday Specials for today only at Better Home Supplies. For the new home builder or redecorator, great specials on all types of tiles, including quarry tiles from $9.72 a square metre, mosaic tiles from $9.44 a square metre, and wall tiles from $11 a square metre. Now don't miss these never-to-be-repeated specials today only at Better Home Supplies in Willcocks Street, Port Augusta. They're open till 3 this afternoon, and every Saturday it's now 11 minutes to 9, and back to the Port Augusta Football Show.
Solly's and Central, you've got the Solly side there in front of you now.
Yes, from the forward line, Solomon Town Reed, Caputo, Thornton and Jaggard. The half forwards, Larry Rawlins, Hayes and Jeff Rawlins. The centre line, Munn, Hellmans and Bain. The half-backs, Johns, Gavin Lesky and Hunt. The back line is Smith, Ian Lesky and Davies. The first ruck, Magor, Thaletic and Anderson. The interchanges are Hobart and Bickley. Into the side come Jaggard, Hobart and Bickley. Out of the side goes Scollin, Crocker and Bateson.
The Central side have a lot of injury problems. There'll be a team meeting this afternoon at 5 p.m. in which the league and second side will be chosen. Apparently they trained last night, but due to injury problems they were unable to pick the side. I can tell you this, that into the side will be Bruno O'Reilly and out will be Mick Fuller, and I can tell you that the other 19 players from last week were Miller, Luke, Manning, Mackay, Baker, Sanders, Tony O'Grady, John O'Grady, Summerton, Dardler, Wellesby, Mafrisi, Newton, Parsons, Vertonen, Lynch, McAuliffe, Martin and Woods, and it'll be interesting to see how many of those players will be in that Central 20 tomorrow afternoon down in Port Pirie. Centrals have had a shocking season.
Well, that is about the word to describe it. Some of the supporters are shell-shocked too. They can't understand why a side with so many good players and that can play some really good football and turn it on when necessary have not put it together. Are there problems around the club? Are the supporters getting stuck into them and wearing the confidence of the players out? There's lots of things that can make a side as good as Central go as bad as they are.
Randall Parsons, 3 goals out of the 6 kicked last week. 6 goals only for Centrals last week.
Very poor up forward. They weren't allowed any chances, of course. We know that the opposition was rather mean last week. They were after a big win, and they were chasing it, and they didn't look like getting it for a while.
And just having a look at their round 1 result against Solomon Town, which was in Port Augusta. Solomon Town 23-17 to Central's 11-19, and that was really the beginning of Central's slump for the year.
Yes, well, that took a lot of steam out of the sails, and it's been very hard for Chris Nat to get them back up to the position where he wants them. I really couldn't make comment on why they're not doing as well. You hear all stories about dissension between players and other things, and unless you check them right out with the people concerned, you can't really make a statement.
True. Solomon Town, let's have a close look at them. They're the top side in the SGL, and they're hanging on to top spot by 1 game and about 1.5%. There's a lot of players coming up to milestones, and they'll be featured in the football budget over the next 3 or 4 weeks. Guys like Larry Rawlins, Jeff Rawlins, Hellmans, Ian Lesky, Smith, and and Hunt also coming up for a milestone in their careers, and we'll be featuring those in the football budget over the next 3 or 4 weeks. But Solly's, all those guys are sort of all started together at Solomon Town, and they're all playing particularly good football at the moment.
Well, they've been the backbone of Solomon Town over the last 2 years. They've been persevered with when they were youngsters. They've stayed together, they know each other, and they've been a great asset to the club and to the juniors that have come and been put in around them.
Hayes at centre-half forward, an interesting move.
Very interesting, because he's not what you would call the typical centre-half forward type. He's not a big man, but he is mobile, he's an elusive left-footer, and I think he's a very good player.
That just about gives them 3 half-forward flankers. They're Larry Rawlins and Jeff Rawlins.
Well, you could virtually see them crisscrossing across the oval with no real set position. That may be a blind cell too, which has been used in the past by some coaches, where you have your 3 and your half-forwards change whenever they feel like it, and the centre-half-forward drops out to a half-forward flank and so on. They work it out between the 3 of them. Yeah, and that would work very well with those 3 types of players.
The other player who's been out for a few weeks has been Brian Webb, the coach, but according to Darren Davis down in Perry, he's actually been playing in the seconds. He's had a couple of seconds games so far in the year, in recent weeks.
Well, he's probably come to the realisation that he can't quite fit back into that side, and his best bet is to keep himself in fit condition in case he is needed to play on the interchange bench. It's no good saying, let's not break up our seconds, I'll go in on the bench if you haven't played for 6 weeks. You need to be match condition as well as training condition, and by doing that he gives them really an extra reserve if they ever come into trouble, and what an experienced man to have on the fence.
Certainly is, 300 plus games. But that defence is looking particularly strong. Smith, Ian Lesky, Davies, Hunt, Gavin Lesky and Johns, mean players.
Well, they have to be mean. They're up top with a very good percentage indeed, David, and they've played the game well all year. If one spoils, the other one's down. They're very disciplined, and the games I've seen of Solomon Town playing, I think that is the asset that they've got in their back lines. If Ian Lesky goes up for the ball, Adrian Davies or Smith in the back pocket know that he's going to punch it. They watch which hand he's going to punch it with, and they know who's going to be in front, who's going to drop behind the pack in case it skids off the fingers and so on. The same with Hunt and Johns with Gavin Lesky. Gavin Lesky is probably the most brilliant spoiler I've ever seen, and yet he could probably outmark 99% of the people in this league, but he'll spoil and give his other players a chance to run on with the ball, and they're very disciplined in that area.
For Central's point of view, their big bonus in recent weeks has been their defence. That's where their best players have come from. I really think that is an indication of how badly their forwards have been playing over recent weeks. The guys who've really impressed me last week were Baker, Luke and Manning.
Well, they get a lot of work. They've got to impress, David. They've got to be doing something all the time, and what you see when a side is being hammered like that in the back lines, you see the true desperation of the player, and the blokes who crack under the pressure are the blokes who don't perform very well. But those blokes haven't cracked under pressure. They've been doing their best, but it's only a handful, and it's not really enough for Centrals to do any better than they have been.
Solomon Town for mine?
I'd say Solomon Town's by a mile.
The game between Wilston and Risdon, the game to be covered tomorrow afternoon by 5AU. In Port Augusta, the backline reads for Risdon reads Henwood, Derek Pine and Pretty. The halfbacks David Pine, Brenton Firm and Valenti. The centre line Aldridge, Payne and Ireland. The half forwards Crow, Mitchell and Colin Firm. The full forward line Brown, Code and Lee. First ruck Shoemaker, Arnold and Marcheretti. Interchange players Patterson and Miller. Into the side Payne and out both. And Peter Crow plays his 100th game tomorrow afternoon for Risdon.
The Wilson squad, Hooper, Newchurch, May, Constable, Glink, Kennedy, Leverington, Morgan, Crabb, Martin, Grove, Willcocks, Peter Penglaze, and the daddy of the side, Alan Penglaze. His wife gave birth to a daughter on Wednesday. Congratulations to Alan and Sue. Nowick, O'Brien, Noonan, Colby, Briggs and Catineri. Into the side comes Mick Catineri, and out goes young Kim Brown. And you've missed Chubbs O'Reilly, mate. He's out too.
Yes.
He's got a little bit of a holiday. He'll be looking from the sidelines.
Brown has a hand injury, looks to be out for 3 or 4 weeks. and that will make him eligible for the thirds finals.
Well, yes, that would, and I think the Wilson thirds need him too. They've just been missing out in close games where Kim Brown is the steadying influence through the middle of the ground for them, and they'll need him in the finals.
Okay, O'Reilly apparently a little bit unlucky last week to be pinged. He was only one of about four who could have been pinged, apparently.
By all reports, there was a straight right delivered, and one Solomon Town hit the ground, and everybody in the oval saw it except the 2, 4, 6 umpires, and that's a bit unusual. I know the man who delivered the blow, and Chubbs O'Reilly copped. I know Chubbs is no angel, but apparently he got picked up in the melee that was going on, and one player to be picked up like that is a bit rough. I really do believe that.
Brisbane 21-22 defeated Willesden 6-7 in round 2 of the SGL. Can you see a similar result this time, or have Willesden picked up a bit?
Well, I think even though they were well beaten last week, Solomon Town didn't really... Well, Solomon Town could have kicked a lot more. They probably got into the bit and coasted. Willesden, on the other hand, they're up and down. They'll win one week, they lose the next. Maybe this is the week they win. And if they put it all together again, then we're in for a good game on Sunday.
I think it'll be a good game on Sunday. Willesden impressed me in that win against Centrals, and they played well the week before against Port. They travelled down to Perry, a little bit disappointing last week, but they've got a settled side. They've had a fairly settled side for the last 3 weeks.
Which is not bad for bottom side. They're not making a great deal of changes. They're settling down. They've got lots of young players, young May, Constable, Glink, Levington, young Aussie Martin, Brenton Grove. And they're trying to settle them down into the side. Another one, young Mick O'Brien's fought his way back into the team again. And they've got a lot to learn. And so it's a learning stage for these guys, and it's a learning stage in consistency rather than anything else.
Yeah, Noonan back last week did some useful things according to our report from Perry.
Yes, I was talking to John on Sunday, and I said that he did realise that there's only one place to go from the back pocket, and that's about 8 feet further to the fence. And John took it in his usual style and just laughed. But he's been a great competitor for Wilson over the years, and I think with this young side, they need a bloke like him in the side, somewhere in a position to stabilise the juniors and to encourage and develop them.
Bob Payne back in the side for Risdon, and he'll make a big difference.
Yes, well, Bob picks up a lot of kicks for Risdon in the centre and delivers the ball, and that's going to be a plus for them.
Only beaten by 8 points last week, Risdon against Port. Payne could have been the one that made the difference.
Could have been, because he does get a heck of a lot of kicks, but it's going to be a good game. I'm going to give you a chance to pick one up on me, because I'm going to tip Wilson to do a bit of an upset here.
Well, you're right there. I'm going to pick Risdon. You're covering the game this afternoon between South and Port, and I'll be covering the game tomorrow between Willesden and Risdon. So until then, this is David Kemp
and Neville Willcocks
for Power City Ford.
Thanks very much, fellas. Right now, the time is 1 minute to 9. News and weather next.
Yes, and do a song about a long gone Irish girl. to meet. Yeah, you really like to eat. Come on, woman, come, follow me home. Oh, well, the priest, he cried, Virgin ascending to the skies tonight. All day long I have passed my time. When the church bell rung, stayed up on the tower in the dying sun. Now come on, woman, come, follow me home. Well, I don't need no priest, but I love all other people. Yes, I share the feast. So drink up my wine, yes, and a song in my bowl. I know the way, I can see by the